There were some minor issues that investigators had to acknowledge. This wasn't guaranteed to be the killer's DNA, since Yvonne could have had sex with someone else before she was killed. Another thing, back in 2001, DNA databases weren't as big as they are now. Neither Illinois nor Missouri had even begun collecting DNA from convicted felons yet. I think in Illinois that wouldn't happen for another year. In Missouri, it was like 3 years away. And so they don't have this big database. I mean, we talk about CODIS quite a bit. It wasn't vast as it is now.
Right. But we do see in a lot of the cases we cover that they hold on to some of that DNA for later. And then that's how a lot of these matches are made. So at least there was a little bit of foresight.
But yeah, they were still really hopeful because at least now they had a sample. They had something ready for comparison that when they did find a suspect, their suspect, they had something.
Right. It's just so unfortunate to see that they weren't able to really track anyone down at this point because it does not take very long for the killer to strike again after these crimes. On October 8th, 2001, 6 weeks after Yvonne was murdered, 33-year-old Brenda Beasley was found dead in East St. Louis, just 2 miles away from where Yvonne's body was found. Her eyes and her arms were bound with tape. She had been struck in the head and she had been suffocated. She was found wearing just her jeans, which were pulled down around her ankles. Brenda also had some similarities to the other victims. She was a sex worker. She also struggled with a cocaine addiction. But 2 days after her murder, on October 10th, her family actually came forward and shared a more intimate version of Brenda with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. So luckily, we do have more information on Brenda other than just the circumstances that surrounded the way that she died. Her family said that she was a mother of 4. Her children lived with her mother in Ferguson, Missouri, which was 6 miles from Baden, where Brenda lived with her boyfriend. And while police claimed that she was a sex worker, because remember, the police are the ones seeing these women being like, sex worker, like that must have been a sex worker. Her family actually came forward and said she was not a sex worker. She worked a full-time job at Hardee's, which was a fast food restaurant near the Stroll, which again, the Stroll is where everyone is walking up and down doing sex work, but Brenda herself worked at the Hardee's that was located on this strip. Now, Brenda had to walk a lot of places because she didn't have a car, which is what she was doing out around midnight on Sunday, October 7th. She was walking home along that long strip of road where men would cruise around looking for sex workers. Now, Brenda had been drinking for several hours. She was planning just to head home and call it a night. She couldn't really afford to miss any work. She really needed the money for her daughter's 10th birthday that week. But instead, sometime between Sunday night and Monday morning, she got picked up by someone, and that person was the killer because her family never saw her alive again.
Like Yvonne, Brenda's body was examined with an SA evidence kit, and again, investigators were able to recover enough semen for a DNA profile, which is clue number 5 for us. When investigators compare the samples from Yvonne and Brenda, they learned that the 2 unknown DNA samples were indeed a match, which made it official. They now had forensic evidence to prove a link between at least 2 of the murders.
By mid-October 2001, the bodies were adding up and no one could ignore the fact that something horrible was happening. Elisa Greenwade, Teresa Wilson, Betty James, Roni Thompson, Yvonne Cruz, and now Brenda Beasley.
6.
Plus, there was another victim, 61-year-old Mary Shields, but police, it seems like they were on the fence as to whether or not she was another potential victim. I mean, her body was found 10 months before Elisa's on July 31st, 2000. Now, police believed that she was most likely part of the murders that we've been talking about, the Teresa and Elisa group of murders, rather than those 4 others from East St. Louis, just based on the details of those other women being found in pairs and in trash bags.
See, that doesn't do it for me though. I'm like, when we look at other cases, we've had Gilgo was kind of inconsistent. Some had burlap sacks, some didn't.
Right.
You guys don't really know anything right now. You don't have a lot to go on. So why be so conclusive that no, these are not connected?
Yeah, and I'm curious too if they were looking for another serial killer at the same time. They knew that those 4 were probably connected, but there's not a lot of information as to what they were doing about those 4.
To me.
Yeah. Well, some of them were even questioning whether Mary was a victim of this serial killer at all because she didn't fit the profile of the others as far as age. She was 30 years older than them. She was also not a sex worker, even though now we know that at least one of them, wasn't a sex worker as well. But as the murders continued to go unsolved, the public grew more concerned. At the time, no one even really knew that this task force had been created to look into these crimes. But on October 28th, 2001, about 3 weeks after Brenda Beasley's murder, an article mentioned that different jurisdictions had actually begun working together. And for a little while, it seemed like this announcement did truly make a difference, because throughout the winter of 2001 into 2002, the murders came to a stop. The police actually figured that the killer had died, or he simply left the area, or he went to prison, or maybe he was just laying low in the wake of all of this publicity. And so maybe because of this, the community of sex workers in St. Louis were able to breathe this collective sigh of relief, because whoever was doing this was gone, at least for now. But that did not last long at all.
Every week, we dive into the pieces, both hidden and obvious, behind some of the biggest true crime cases. Subscribe to Clues Pod with Morgan Absher and Kaelyn Moore on YouTube.
And remember, every clue counts.